Hey everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive here on Book Reviews 1.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Now today we're diving into Adam Grant's Think Again.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It really is, and I feel like it's a book that everyone can benefit from.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about, the power of changing our minds.
Right, and not just our opinions, but really, reconsidering our beliefs.
Exactly, because sometimes we get so attached to our ideas.
Yeah.
Like we build these fortresses around them.
Totally.
And then, if anyone disagrees,
oh yeah,
they're met with like a barrage of arguments.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
I just wanted to have a conversation.
Right.
So Adam Grant, he really challenges us to rethink that whole approach.
He does.
He says, being wrong
Okay.
isn't something to be feared,
Okay.
but it's actually something to embrace
Interesting.
because it means we've learned something new.
Okay.
We've expanded our understanding of the world.
I like that. That's like a growth opportunity.
Exactly. And he even suggests we should strive to become what he calls intellectual explorers,
Ooh, I like that. Intellectual explorer.
constantly seeking out new information and being willing to adjust our thinking based on what we discover.
It's like we're on a quest for knowledge,
Yes.
always open to new discoveries.
I love that. So much more exciting than being stuck in our own little echo chambers.
Right? Because in those echo chambers, we only hear what we want to hear.
Exactly.
We're not exposed to different perspectives.
And then we just kind of stagnate.
And that's where rethinking comes in.
It does. And Grant provides a framework for how to do this.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Because it can feel kind of daunting.
It can't.
Like, where do I even begin with this whole rethinking thing?
Right. So he starts by, helping us recognize the different thinking styles
Okay.
that we tend to fall into.
Yeah, like how we approach ideas and arguments.
And he uses these really vivid metaphors to describe them.
I love a good metaphor.
Preacher, prosecutor, politician, and scientist.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
All right. So the preacher,
Okay.
as you might imagine, is all about defending their beliefs.
Yeah, with unwavering conviction.
Yes. It's like they're delivering a sermon, and their goal is to convert everyone to their way of thinking.
No room for questioning or dissenting opinions.
Nope, just accepting the truth as they see it.
Gotcha. Okay, what about the prosecutor?
So the prosecutor
Yeah.
is always on the attack,
Yeah.
looking to dismantle opposing views as if they're in a courtroom.
All right, so they're ready to cross-examine any witness
Oh, absolutely.
who dares to challenge their stance.
Yes, they're coming armed with evidence and arguments.
Okay, makes sense. What about the politician?
All right, so the politician
Yeah.
is more concerned with winning approval
Okay.
than actually seeking the truth.
So it's all about crafting the perfect soundbite,
It is.
even if it means bending the facts a little bit
Maybe a lot.
to make their point.
It's about persuasion.
Okay, I see. And finally, we have the scientist.
The scientist approaches ideas with curiosity
Oh.
and open-mindedness.
So they're not attached to being right or wrong.
Not at all. They're just eager to learn and discover.
That's the ideal mindset, isn't it?
It is. And Grant argues that, cultivating this scientist mindset
Okay.
is essential for navigating the complexities of the world.
Because the world is messy.
It is.
There's rarely a clear-cut right or wrong answer.
Absolutely. And I think, we can all relate to slipping into those other thinking styles from time to time.
Oh, for sure. I know I've caught myself being a bit of a preacher now and then.
Me too,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to, topics I'm passionate about.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in defending our beliefs.
It is, but I'm curious, have you ever encountered someone who embodies that scientist mindset, like in a truly remarkable way?
One example that Grant highlights in the book is Mike Lazaridis, the creator of the BlackBerry.
Oh, interesting. I wouldn't have immediately thought of him as a scientist thinker.
Well, he was brilliant, undoubtedly. But when the iPhone came along, Lazaridis remained convinced that the market wanted keyboards, not touch screens.
It's like he was so attached to his creation
Right.
that he missed a huge opportunity.
Yeah, he was resistant to the idea that the world was moving in a different direction.
It's a classic example of how even brilliant minds can fall prey to the dangers of clinging to outdated beliefs.
And that's why rethinking is so important.
It's not enough to be smart.
No.
We also need to be adaptable, willing to rethink our assumptions when the evidence suggests we need to.
Exactly. Because the world is constantly changing.
And if we don't change with it,
We risk being left behind.
we do. And that brings us to another fascinating concept that Grant explores,
Oh, I'm ready for it.
the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Okay, I've heard of this one. Fill me in.
All right, so the Dunning-Kruger effect,
Yeah.
or as Grant playfully calls it, Mount Stupid.
Okay, I like that.
It's that phenomenon where the people who are least competent are often the most confident in their abilities.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely encountered that.
Because they lack the knowledge to recognize their own incompetence.
It's like they're blissfully unaware of how much they don't know.
And it can be kind of comical in a slightly terrifying way.
It's like those people who confidently spout off misinformation on social media.
Oh, yeah.
Completely oblivious to the fact that they have no idea what they're talking about.
And, Grant provides some hilarious examples of common misconceptions that illustrate this effect.
Oh, okay. Like what?
Remember the one about how there's no official language in the United States?
Oh, yeah. I remember that one.
Or how sugar doesn't actually make kids hyper.
What?
Really?
Yeah, it's true.
Mind blown.
I know those are classic examples, and we've probably all fallen for a few of these at some point, haven't we?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've had my fair share of misconceptions.
Me too. But, the Dunning-Kruger effect isn't always a laughing matter.
Right. It can have serious consequences.
Like we saw with Davíð Oddsson.
Who's that?
The former Prime Minister of Iceland.
Okay.
And the Icelandic financial crisis.
Oh, now that's a prime example of how overconfidence can lead to disastrous outcomes.
So what happened?
Well, Oddsson, despite having no formal training in finance or economics,
oh, wow,
led Iceland right into a financial collapse because he was so sure of his own judgment.
Yikes.
He dismissed the warnings of experts.
And that's the danger of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
It is. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of not recognizing the limits of our own knowledge.
That's a good point.
But here's a thought. While the Dunning-Kruger effect highlights the perils of overconfidence,
yeah,
what about the opposite problem?
Okay.
What about when we doubt ourselves even when we're competent?
You're talking about imposter syndrome, right?
Exactly.
The feeling that we're not as capable as others perceive us to be.
And it's amazing how many successful people experience this.
It really is.
You'd think they'd be brimming with confidence.
Right. They've achieved so much.
But often they're plagued by self-doubt.
It's like they're constantly waiting for someone to expose them as a fraud.
And what's fascinating is that research suggests that imposters often perform better.
Really?
Especially in roles that require empathy and learning.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Not at all.
Interesting.
Grant shares the example of investment professionals.
Okay.
Those who experienced more imposter feelings actually received higher performance reviews.
So feeling like an imposter can actually be a good thing.
It seems counterintuitive, but there's evidence to support it.
How so?
It suggests that a bit of self-doubt can be a powerful motivator, driving us to work harder and learn more.
So instead of viewing imposter syndrome as a weakness,
we should reframe it as a potential strength.
I like that.
It's a sign that we're striving to improve.
Yeah.
That we're not complacent.
And it's a reminder to be kind to ourselves, to acknowledge that everyone experiences moments of self-doubt.
Even those who appear incredibly confident on the surface.
Exactly.
And that openness to learning is key to embracing what Grant calls the joy of being wrong.
The joy of being wrong. That sounds almost paradoxical.
It does, right?
How can being wrong possibly be joyful?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
If we're always right, it means we're not learning anything new.
We're just stuck in our old ways of thinking.
Exactly. We're missing out on the opportunity to expand our understanding of the world.
So being wrong is actually a sign that we're challenging our assumptions.
Right.
That we're open to new information and perspective.
And Grant profiled these incredible people who actually get excited when they're proven wrong.
Really?
Because to them, it means they've discovered something new.
It's like a thrill of the unknown.
And he's not just talking about everyday folks here.
Okay.
He's talking about Nobel Prize-winning scientists, election forecasters.
People at the top of their game.
Exactly. People like Kirsten Morel, whose expertise is in hip joint mechanics.
Wait, what? Hip joints and elections?
Oh, no, right?
That's the most unexpected combination I've ever heard.
It is, but she's an incredible election forecaster.
So how does that even work?
It speaks to the importance of being able to detach our opinions from our identity.
Okay, so they're not afraid to be proven wrong.
Not at all. Their goal is to get closer to the truth.
No matter what.
Exactly. They embody that scientist mindset we were talking about earlier.
I see.
And that brings us to another crucial point, detaching our opinions from our identity.
Okay.
Grant argues that clinging to beliefs as part of who we are
can
actually prevent us from growing and adapting.
Like those people who get super defensive when you challenge their political views.
Exactly. It's almost like you're attacking them personally.
It's because they've built their identity around those beliefs.
Right.
So any challenge feels like a threat to their sense of self.
So how do we avoid falling into that trap?
Yeah, how do we separate our opinions from our core identity?
Grant has a great tip in the book.
I'm listening.
Define yourself by your values, not your opinions.
Okay, I like that.
Values are like our guiding principles, things like honesty, fairness, kindness.
Yeah, those should remain fairly constant.
But opinions, those should be flexible.
Right. Able to change as we encounter new evidence and perspectives.
And this ability to detach our opinions from our identity is crucial for having healthy conversations with people who hold different views.
Absolutely, because if we're too attached to being right,
Yeah.
we're not going to be open to understanding where they're coming from.
And that's where the concept of persuasive listening comes in.
Persuasive listening, what's that all about?
It's about asking questions to genuinely understand the other person's perspective,
Okay.
rather than just waiting for your turn to speak and argue your point.
So it's about putting aside our own agenda
Yes.
and truly listening with the intention of understanding.
even if we don't agree.
It's about finding common ground
Yes.
and working together to find solutions.
And it's amazing how powerful this can be.
I can imagine.
Grant shares the incredible story of Daryl Davis, a black musician who befriended members of the Ku Klux Klan.
Wait, what? He befriended KKK members?
He did.
That's pretty extraordinary.
It is. And you know what? He actually managed to get some of them to rethink their racist beliefs.
Wow.
Not by attacking them,
Okay.
but by listening to them, by asking questions, by finding common ground.
That's a powerful testament to the power of empathy and dialogue.
It is. He must have had some serious courage to do that.
I can't even imagine.
His story shows us that even in the face of deep-seated prejudice,
Yeah.
genuine connection and understanding are possible.
That's inspiring.
It is. And, this conversation is making me realize that rethinking isn't just about changing our minds.
Right.
It's about changing our entire approach to life.
It's about being more curious, more open-minded, and more willing to embrace the unknown.
And you know what? I think that's a pretty great way to live.
I couldn't agree more.
And speaking of great ways to live, I want to remind everyone watching that we're just scratching the surface of Think Again in this deep dive.
There's so much more to explore in the book itself.
Absolutely. And if you're enjoying this discussion, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Book Reviews 1 for more deep dives into fascinating books like this.
And don't forget to share this video with your friends. Let's spread the joy of rethinking.
Now let's move on to explore how these ideas can be applied to our relationships, both personal and professional.
I'm ready.
Grant argues that the desire to be right can actually be incredibly damaging to our connections with others.
It's true. Sometimes we get so caught up in winning an argument
Yeah.
that we forget about the importance of the relationship.
And he uses the example of Brad Bird, the director of The Incredibles,
Okay.
to illustrate how conflict can actually be productive if it's handled the right way.
So it's not about avoiding conflict altogether. It's about learning how to engage in it constructively.
Bird intentionally surrounded himself with people who were willing to disagree with him, to push back on his ideas. He called them his team of pirates.
Pirates, I love that. Sounds
Yeah.
like a fun team to be on.
So it's not about avoiding conflict altogether. It's about learning how to engage in it constructively.
And that starts with recognizing the difference between task conflict and relationship conflict.
Okay, break that down for us. What's the difference?
Task conflict is about disagreeing on ideas, strategies, or approaches to a problem.
It can actually be incredibly beneficial
Right.
because it forces us to consider different perspectives
Yeah.
and come up with better solutions,
It's like brainstorming where everyone throws out ideas.
even if they seem crazy at first.
Right. The goal is to spark creativity and innovation.
But relationship conflict is different.
Okay.
It's about personal attacks, disrespect, and negativity.
It's about undermining the other person rather than focusing on the issue at hand.
And that's the kind of conflict that can destroy teams' relationships, even entire organizations.
Because it creates a toxic environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's often fueled by the desire to be right, to win the argument at all costs.
So how do we avoid falling into the trap of relationship conflict?
How do we ensure that our disagreements remain productive and respectful?
Well, that's where persuasive listening comes in again.
Right.
It's about asking questions to understand the other person's perspective, even if we disagree with it.
And it's about remembering that we're all on the same team,
Yes.
even when we have different ideas.
And it's about being willing to rethink our own assumptions.
Right.
And be open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
This conversation is making me realize that rethinking isn't just about changing our minds.
Right.
It's about changing our entire approach to life.
It's about being more curious, more open-minded, more willing to embrace the unknown.
And recognizing that the process of rethinking should never end.
Absolutely. We should constantly be seeking out new information, challenging our assumptions, and refining our understanding of the world.
That's such a powerful idea.
It is.
It's a reminder to stay curious, to stay open, and to never stop learning.
And speaking of learning, we haven't even touched on how these ideas can be applied to our careers and even our overall happiness.
That's right. But before we get into that, let's take a quick break.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back with more insights from Think Again.
Welcome back, everyone.
So before the break, we were talking about, how the desire to be right can be damaging to our relationships.
Right, and a persuasive listening can help.
Exactly. But, Grant also dives into how these ideas apply to our careers.
Our careers.
Yeah, and even our pursuit of happiness.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So he starts by challenging a question that we're all asked from a very young age.
What do you want to be when you grow up, right?
Yeah, that one.
I remember that.
And Grant argues that this seemingly harmless question can actually be quite detrimental.
Detrimental? How so?
Because it can lead to what psychologists call identity foreclosure.
Okay, identity foreclosure. That sounds intense.
It's the idea that we commit to a particular career path or identity prematurely without fully exploring all the possibilities.
So we box ourselves in before we've even had a chance to discover who we truly are and what we're passionate about.
Exactly. It's like we're choosing our destiny based on limited information.
Right, and societal expectations.
Rather than genuine self-discovery.
It's like we're picking a major in college.
Yeah.
Based on what our parents think we should do.
Or what sounds prestigious.
Instead of what truly excites us.
And Grant shares the story of his own brother, Ryan.
Okay.
Who spent years pursuing a career in neurosurgery despite having doubts along the way.
Oh, wow.
And it just highlights the danger of investing so much time and energy into a path that might not ultimately be the right fit.
It's like spending years climbing the wrong ladder.
Yeah.
Only to realize you're leaning against the wrong wall.
And I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of being on a predetermined track, even when it doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah, it's like we're afraid to deviate from the plan.
Even if it's leading us in the wrong direction.
So what does Grant suggest instead?
He encourages us to think like scientists when it comes to our careers.
Okay.
So instead of viewing our career path as a fixed destination, we should see it as an ongoing experiment.
Like we're constantly testing our hypotheses.
Exactly. We should experiment with different roles, industries, and skills.
So it's about being open to new possibilities.
And being willing to pivot if something isn't working.
I like that because sometimes we can get so fixated on a specific goal.
We do.
That we miss out on other opportunities.
So it's about embracing uncertainty, being open to new possibilities, and constantly iterating based on what we learn along the way.
It's a more dynamic approach to career development.
And Grant highlights a framework developed by organizational behavior professor Herminia Ibarra.
Okay.
Who suggests that we think about our careers in terms of possible selves.
Possible selves. That's interesting. Tell me more.
So Ibarra argues that instead of focusing on a single fixed idea of who we want to be, we should cultivate a portfolio of possible selves.
Different versions of ourselves that we could potentially become.
Exactly.
So it's about expanding our horizons.
Exploring different options and allowing ourselves to evolve over time.
Okay, and how do we actually do that?
This exploration can take many forms. Trying out new hobbies, volunteering in different organizations.
Taking on side projects.
Even just having conversations with people in different fields.
It's about being proactive and intentional about our career development.
Rather than just passively following the path that's been laid out for us.
And you know what? This idea of experimentation isn't just limited to our careers.
Right.
It can be applied to our pursuit of happiness as well.
So how does rethinking play into finding happiness?
Well, Grant challenges the notion that happiness is something we can simply achieve by following a set of rules or striving for some kind of peak bliss.
So he's saying that there's no magic formula for happiness.
Right. And he suggests that focusing too much on happiness can actually backfire.
So chasing happiness can actually make us less happy?
It's a paradox, but it's true.
How does that work?
Grant points out that constantly evaluating our happiness levels can actually prevent us from fully experiencing joy in the moment.
It's like we're so busy analyzing our emotions.
Right.
that we miss out on the actual experience of them.
Exactly. So it's not about achieving some kind of permanent state of euphoria.
Okay.
It's about cultivating a mindset that allows us to appreciate the good things in life, even when things aren't perfect.
So it's about finding contentment in the present moment.
And Grant suggests that we might be better off focusing on finding meaning and purpose in our lives rather than just chasing fleeting moments of pleasure.
So it's not that pleasure is bad,
Right.
but it's only one piece of the happiness puzzle.
We also need a sense of purpose, something that gives our lives meaning and direction.
I like that. And he shares the inspiring story of Candace Walker, a custodian at a cancer center who redefined her job,
Okay,
going above and beyond to bring comfort and joy to the patients.
that's beautiful.
It shows that happiness often comes as a byproduct of pursuing something larger than ourselves.
Right, of using our talents and skills to make a positive impact on the world.
And it's a reminder that happiness isn't always about grand gestures.
Or achieving some kind of external validation.
It can be found in the simple act of making someone's day a little bit brighter.
Absolutely, and I think that's something we can all strive for.
This conversation has been so eye-opening.
It has.
I feel like I'm starting to see the world in a whole new light.
That's the power of rethinking.
It allows us to challenge our assumptions, question our beliefs, and ultimately become more adaptable, more resilient, and more open to the possibilities that life has to offer.
It's about letting go of the need to be right all the time.
And embracing the joy of learning, growing, and evolving.
I think that's a pretty great way to live.
And speaking of great ways to live, I want to remind everyone watching that we're just scratching the surface of think again in this deep dive.
There's so much more to explore in the book itself.
And if you're enjoying this discussion, be sure to check out the full book.
It's packed with insights, anecdotes, and practical advice.
That can help you become a more flexible, adaptable, and ultimately successful thinker.
And if you're looking for more deep dives into fascinating books like this,
be sure to subscribe to Book Reviews 1 and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our latest videos.
And don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends.
Now, before we wrap up, let's talk about one final concept that Grant emphasizes.
Okay, what's that?
The importance of creating a culture of rethinking.
A culture of rethinking. Interesting. What does that look like?
It's about creating environments where it's safe to challenge the status quo, to question assumptions, and to admit when we're wrong.
So it's about fostering a sense of psychological safety.
Where people feel comfortable speaking up, sharing their ideas, and even disagreeing with those in positions of authority.
And this applies to all aspects of our life.
Our workplaces, our families, our communities, and even our own internal dialogues.
So it's not just about rethinking our own thoughts and beliefs.
It's about creating spaces where others feel empowered to do the same.
And that starts with modeling those behaviors ourselves.
Being open to feedback, admitting when we're wrong, and encouraging others to do the same.
It's about shifting our mindset from one of defensiveness to one of curiosity.
From a need to be right to a desire to learn and grow.
And Grant argues that this shift in mindset is essential for navigating the complexities of the world we live in.
A world that's constantly changing and evolving.
A world where the ability to adapt, to unlearn, and to rethink is more valuable than ever before.
And you know what?
What's that?
I think that's a pretty great note to end on. You know, we've talked about rethinking in our personal lives and in our relationships, even in our careers.
It's really about approaching everything with a fresh perspective.
It is, but is there ever a point where rethinking becomes too much?
That's a great question.
Like, is there a danger of overthinking things?
You know, Grant actually addresses that concern in the book.
He does.
He acknowledges that rethinking can be exhausting if we're constantly second-guessing ourselves or overanalyzing every decision.
Because there's a difference between, healthy skepticism and just being paralyzed by indecision.
Exactly. And Grant emphasizes that rethinking isn't about becoming perpetually unsure of ourselves.
Okay.
It's about striking a balance
Between
being open to new information and being able to make decisions and move forward.
So it's not about dwelling in a constant state of doubt.
Right.
It's about knowing when to step back and reassess our beliefs.
And when to trust our gut and take action.
And he even offers some practical tips for how to avoid overthinking.
Oh, like what?
Like setting time limits for making decisions, focusing on gathering information from reliable sources, seeking feedback from trusted advisors.
Those are really helpful tips.
They are, and I know I've definitely fallen into the trap of overthinking things in the past.
I think we all have at some point.
And it can be incredibly draining.
It can.
But I also think it's important to acknowledge that rethinking is a process.
Right.
And it doesn't always happen overnight.
It takes time, effort, and a willingness to be uncomfortable at times.
But the rewards can be immense.
Absolutely.
And you know what really resonated with me was Grant's emphasis on the importance of embracing the unknown.
Okay.
He argues that the most fulfilling experiences often come from stepping outside of our comfort zones.
And embracing the uncertainty that comes with new challenges and opportunities.
Exactly. He even uses the metaphor of blank page
Oh, I like that.
to represent the potential for growth and discovery that comes with rethinking.
It's a reminder that we're constantly evolving.
And there's always more to learn and explore.
That's a powerful image.
It captures the spirit of lifelong learning.
And the transformative potential of rethinking.
And speaking of transformation, I think it's worth mentioning that Think Again isn't just a book about changing our minds.
Okay.
It's a book about changing the world.
Changing the world. How so?
Grant argues that the ability to rethink is essential for addressing some of the most pressing challenges facing our society.
Like what?
From climate change to political polarization to inequality.
Because if we're stuck in our old ways of thinking, we're not going to be able to come up with innovative solutions to these complex problems.
We need to be willing to challenge the status quo, to question assumptions.
And to collaborate with people who hold different views.
And it all starts with a willingness to rethink.
I think you're right.
This conversation has been truly inspiring.
It has.
I feel like I have a whole new set of tools for navigating the complexities of life.
And for making a positive impact on the world.
I hope that everyone watching feels empowered to embrace the power of rethinking in their own lives.
Me too.
And speaking of empowerment, I want to remind everyone that this is just a taste of the insights that Adam Grant offers in Think Again.
Right. We've just scratched the surface.
If you're intrigued by what you've heard today, I highly recommend checking out the full book.
It's a must-read for anyone who wants to become a more flexible, adaptable, and ultimately successful thinker.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Think Again, be sure to let us know in the comments.
Yeah, what resonated with you most?
What are some areas where you're ready to rethink?
And if you're looking for more deep dives into fascinating books like this,
Be sure to subscribe to Book Reviews 1 and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our latest videos.
and don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends.
Let's spread the joy of rethinking together
Until next time, keep those minds open.
and keep thinking again.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.